Over the course of the last decade or so, a surge of individual scoring has taken over the basketball world. From all the way down to high school ball, players have become much more advanced at such a young age and is finally catching up to the NBA. Since 2013, the amount of 40-point games each year has vastly increased, and this year the league is on pace for the most 40 balls in a single season ever. To take it up a notch, we saw 4 players score over 60 points in 1 week. I've seen a lot of conversation on whether the NBA's defenses have drastically regressed or players have just become better. I'm here to put an end to this debate and dive into the film of each 60-plus point game we've seen in the league this year and whether it was just good offense, poor defense, or a mixture of both. I'm Kevo Jr. and let's get into it. The first game we got is from December 13th, where Giannis scored a career-high 64 points against the Pacers. This is the infamous game where the Pacers wouldn't give Giannis the game ball. He shot 71% from the field and 24 from 32 from the free throw line. To start this off out of the post, you see Miles Turner does a poor job at cutting off the baseline and giving Giannis a free way to the rim. Here out of the pick and roll, Giannis just makes a great move off the bounce for a dunk. This time he's the lead ball handler and uses a push dribble into a step through for the lay. Again, as a lead handler, he just has his way out of the pick and roll with Miles Turner. This is just bad resistance as he slips through Bruce Brown and there's no backside help from Halliburton. Indiana just doesn't have anyone to match up with Giannis because Miles Turner did a very bad job this game at cutting off his angles at the hoop. Here again, nobody stops the ball and Isaiah Jackson lazily just reaches at Giannis instead of putting his body in front of him. And lastly, out of the high post, Giannis is mismatched again and there's no way Aaron Nesmith is stopping him with no sort of help defense. So overall, I'd say this performance by Giannis against the Pacers was a combination of his complete dominance and very poor defensive efforts by Indy. The next performance is the first of 4 60-point games from last week alone. Joel Embiid scored 70 points on 58% shooting and 21 for 23 from the free throw line against the Spurs. This was easily the best display of a team getting a player to his spots that I've ever seen. In a lot of these clips, you will see Embiid at the exact same spot, the top of the key. San Antonio did a bad job at making it hard for him to get to where he wanted to be. Here, Embiid just uses his size to bully Wemby out of position to get to the dunk. Same thing here, Zach Collins is fronting Embiid but with no backside help and pure dominance he gets to and one. Here again he's at the free throw line extended and Osman doesn't commit to the double, which gives Joel the easy pull-up. This play here, there's a miscommunication on the screen and McDermott doesn't cut off the baseline, but after that it isn't that bad of defense and Embiid is just too dominant for any of the Spurs interior defenders. Again in the post, the Spurs fail to commit to the double and Embiid will not see a contest like this even if it's a guy who's 7'4". There's just no physicality on this size up from Joel, it truly just looks effortless. Here Embiid bullies Wemby to get position and he catches deep in the paint, which is damn near impossible to stop at that point. Same thing here, he seals Wemby off and stays active to finish the bucket. Off the catch from another unorganized double team, he stays patient in traffic for the and one. Again, Zach Collins fronts the post with zero backside help. Look at the rest of the Spurs on the perimeter and look at Zach Collins. This is the stuff they teach you in high school. Being 7 foot 300 pounds and able to move like this shows you how far the NBA has come offensively. Overall, the Spurs defense was very bad against Joel Embiid. Not taking anything away from his performance because he makes it very tough for everyone, but the consistent miscues and overall game plan on the reigning MVP was a big reason this 70 ball even happened. The next 60-plus point game on that same Monday as Embiid is from Cat. Cat scored 62 points on 60% from the field and 10 for 15 from 3 against the Hornets. This was probably the funniest game of the season in my opinion because the T-Wolves ended up losing this game and Cat got benched in the fourth due to his shot selection late down the stretch. But in terms of his buckets, it was another display of the evolution of the game of basketball. The first shot of the entire game is a 4-5 pick and roll leading to a pull-up from Cat. Next, Miles Bridges allows a straight line drive with PJ Washington in the paint with his back turned to the ball for the layup. Here the Hornets are in drop coverage, so Cat just pops to the 3 for a wide open look. This isn't that bad of defense by LaMelo at the start as he beats Cat to the spot, but after that it gets really bad. LaMelo just gives up on a play and Brandon Miller half helps and Cat gets an easy turnaround jumper. Next, he beats Bridges' baseline and Ish Smith is a split second too late on the help. Here the Hornets ice the ball screen and Smith is out of position help side, which leads to a 3. In the second quarter, the T-Wolves run a Spain pick and roll where Cat screens the ball, then Gobert screens his man and Cat's open again for a 3. Another miscommunication by the Hornets leaves Towns open again for a 3. PJ Washington gets beat baseline and once again Miles Bridges is out of position on the wall. This had the potential to be the best defensive play of this entire breakdown until LaMelo lazily reaches on a double team leading to a hook shot. You're seeing a theme here where miscommunication and a lack of focus gives Towns easy looks. Like, how do you give up this wide open of a look on back-to-back possessions to a guy who at this point has 38 points and 7 threes in the first half? Again, not that bad of defense by PJ Washington, but here comes LaMelo again with lazy help defense gifting a layup to Cat. Getting beat off the dribble this bad by a 7-footer is ridiculous, man. This is effort from a team who's 9-31. But this is just an elite shot from a guy who's seeing the rim the size of the ocean right now. Another Spain pick and roll action gives Cat another good look from 3. And last but not least, another wing getting beat off the dribble with subpar help defense in a 1-point game. Overall, this was by far the worst defensive showing out of the 5 games I'm breaking down, and this is the reason people argue that defense in the NBA has drastically declined over the past few decades. A few days later, the first of 2 60-point games on the Friday of the same week came from Luka against the Hawks. He scored 73 points on 75% from the field and 91% true shooting. This is probably the least physical I've seen a defense be on a superstar in a while. You can see Luka's literally coasting to his spots in this game. Here out of the pick and roll, Luka gets to the step back at the free throw line. Here's another step back out of the pick and roll. This time Luka gets to switch and slowly rises off his left foot for the lay. This is probably my favorite move out of the breakdown. Doncic attacks Jalen Johnson's top foot and hits a turnaround, but for some reason goes up for the contact lay and finishes. Off the switch, he creates separation from a long step back for the 3. In transition, he looks off the help defense and stops for the fade. This is the example everyone will use for the NBA's bad defense. The Hawks just watch Luka walk down the court for an uncontested layup. Atlanta's game plan was to go over the screens and drop the center, and Luka gets to a spot and hits a tough fadeaway. This really wasn't that bad of a game plan. Doncic just made the right play damn near every single time. Here he rejects the ball screen, and with Capella on the perimeter, the Hawks had no interior presence. With Jalen Johnson getting the assignment on Luka and Dallas running pick and rolls with the 5, the Hawks' 2 biggest defenders were out of the paint, and it left their interior defense vulnerable since there was no bigger help defense. Luka gets 2 switches from the 2 worst on-ball defenders on the floor, and Trae Young had no chance stopping this. Saddiq Bey is also hugging his man and his back not to the basket. Another switch leads to an easy step back 3. Luka swipes at the defender's arm and hits a one-legged runner off glass. Atlanta has now started to hedge, but Bey is too late on his recovery and Luka gets a pretty decent look. Off another hard hedge, Trae leaves before Bey gets position and Luka hits a ridiculous fading shot nearly behind the backboard. Here Garrison Matthews is super late on the hedge and Luka gets the and-1. Next, this is great defense but just a tough bucket from a guy who has 60 points at this point. Here again, this is not bad on-ball defense, but that last slow rise up is what separated a defensive stop from 2 points. And lastly, to ice the game, Luka splits the hedge and steps through the top foot of Johnson for the and-1. So for this matchup, I will actually say that the Hawks did not do that bad of a job compared to the other defenses in this video, but Luka's individual efforts took apart whatever Atlanta threw at him. And the last of the scoring outbursts was later that same night by Devin Booker. He scored 62 points on 60% shooting and 50% from the 3 in a loss against the Pacers. The Pacers are once again in this video against a player with the exact opposite playstyle as a physically dominant Giannis. These boys just have lapses every single night that makes it tough to argue in defense of NBA defenses. Like here, Nesmith switches onto Book and expects to switch from Siakam, but miscommunication leads to an open 3. This was just a beautiful display of footwork by Book, a drop dribble into the fade towards the baseline. Here the Pacers run him off the 3-point line and he uses another drop dribble for the midi. Booker is super patient in traffic. He has a defender on his hip, so he spins middle for the tough jumper. Out of the ISO, he attacks the top foot and takes the contact to rise up for another midi. He does such a good job at using his body when he's at his spots and takes contact very well. Besides this clip, the Pacers aren't doing a bad job defensively, he's just literally making better plays offensively. Like here off the switch, Shepard and Nesmith don't do a bad job on Book, he's literally just rising over the contest at his spots. Nesmith is draped all over him, but he takes advantage of his arm and gets the and one. Out of the drop, Book gets the switch and hezzies through the defender for the lay. Like look at this, two defenders are collapsed on him the entire way, but he elevates over the contest for the tough bucket. This performance was the definition of good defense, better offense. Here he splits the weak hedge and finishes through multiple bodies. Another ridiculous effort, he attacks a closeout and uses his left hand, falling out of bounds over 3 defenders. Book shot 8 for 11 from the floor from 8 to 16 feet out, which is basically halfway from the paint to the free throw line. And lastly in crunch time, Booker dribbles into the help defense, but since it's his spot, the contests do not matter. So overall, for this performance against Indy, I say was one of the more impressive outings of the past week because the Pacers actually had a really good defensive effort and game plan on him. He was really just in the different zone and made some really tough shots throughout the night. After breaking down these 5 performances, I have come to the consensus that it is more so the players today have significantly improved instead of defenses drastically declining. It's no secret that bad teams most likely have bad defenses, and you rarely see these scoring bursts against great teams. So in my opinion, better offense will almost always beat better defense. There's also been topics about rules favoring offenses. I do think the NBA could maybe allow defenses to be more physical and refs to be more lenient with their calls, but overall these scoring surges will still continue to happen. And lastly, I do think these high scoring performances in the regular season are still good for the league to keep the excitement up. Appreciate you guys for tuning into the video. I hope y'all enjoyed this one and I'll see y'all next time. Peace.